It's like we're growers, and this is not a perfect parent club. Ain't no perfect parents. That's not what we're doing. But the difference between a parent who can acknowledge their stuff and actively tries to develop themselves, and a parent that says, well, I was doing the best I could. I don't know why you couldn't be fine with it. I mean, it's a visit for the holidays. That's the difference. Like, do you want them to come home for the holidays or not?
Yes, you're exactly right. Yep.
Welcome to 3%. We're your hosts, Jamie Haig.
And I'm Blake Roberts.
We're two best friends, fathers, husbands, and just two guys trying to figure it out.
We're also therapists, which is probably a pretty important part.
That's true.
And we believe that at our best, people are 97% honest with themselves and others. And it's that hidden 3% of emotions, needs, desires, and behaviors that we keep to ourselves that keep us bound to shame and loneliness, from which many of our issues stem.
Each week on this podcast, we'll interview leaders in the fields of psychology, theology, arts, and athletics to explore holistic masculinity. We're not here to tell you the man you need to be, but we are here to help you explore what gets in the way of being the man you want to be.
We're going to help you develop courage and give you the tools to share your 3% in the relationships that matter most, so you can more deeply connect with yourself, God, and others. So, pull up a chair.
Let's get into it.
So let's be honest. Let's be honest. Let's be honest.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Season 2 of the 3% Podcast. If you listened to Season 1, you'll have heard our episode, what do we call it? The Science of Relationships?
Yeah.
Which was one of our most listened to episodes of the season, where we broke down attachment styles. So if you listened to that episode and you liked it, this one is going to be even better because we have the attachment nerd on the show. She actually should have done the episode about the science of relationships, not us. And even if you didn't listen to that episode, but you're familiar with, there's lots of conversation now today in the zeitgeist about attachment styles and about parenting and connection-focused parenting, which is what we're going to talk about today. And we have Eli Harwood on the show today. Eli is a USA Today best-selling author. Woo-hoo. She's got a few books that are amazing on parenting, and her newest book we're going to talk about today. And she's a mom of 3. She's a therapist, and even just in our few minutes before the show of getting to connect with her, her energy is great. So this is going to be really fun. And if you are a parent, this episode is for you. If you are an adult child who is working on healing your relationship with your parents, this episode is for you. If you are the parent and you have adult kids and you're on that end of anybody who's a parent or wants to be a parent.
If you're breathing.
If you're a human being, this episode is for you. Yeah. Eli, welcome to the show. This is going to be really fun. We're glad to have you.
Oh, it's so fun. I'm so excited to be here. I'm always looking for people who are going to nerd out with me on this, and not everybody wants to. It's so rude.
I don't get that at all.
I don't either.
Well, you've got two therapists who are here to nerd out with you, and a lot of our listeners like to nerd out about this stuff as well. So sometimes before we get into the meat of the episode, we like to ask our guests to give our listeners a little bit of a background, and us, all those things that I just mentioned about where you are today and who you are and what you're doing. If you were to give us a little overview, however deep you want to get or however surface level you want to stay, of who is Eli, what happened to Eli that led her to being the attachment nerd who's writing about connection-focused parenting and coming out with books to help people have more secure attachment with their kids. Like, why are you doing this?
I read about attachment once in a magazine. JK.
I was like, okay, that's fun.
Is that it? No. I was born into a family with a real solid legacy of unresolved trauma. And I, in particular, my mama had profound childhood trauma and married my dad before an opportunity to heal would come along. My dad had a pretty serious addiction. And so as a wee babe, I was in a home where there weren't really any emotional grown-ups. Nobody was okay. And my parents loved me. So I want to say that because insecure attachment, which is what my primary experience was growing up, is different than significant, disorganized, abusive, neglectful attachment experiences that we also code as insecure, but are different. So I knew I was loved. I also knew my grown-ups were not reliable, that they were not sturdy in ways that would allow me to be the kid. So I very early on became a parentified kid. I was in charge of helping my mom believe that she was worthy and trying to buffer the tension between her and my dad when, once again, he went to the local bar. It's shut down now, but it used to be called Piccolo's. It was actually really a great restaurant. It was one half Italian, one half Mexican food. So like you'd go and you're like, let's go to Piccolo's, and you could have, an enchilada, and you could also get some pasta. Like, it was pretty amazing.
That's such a wild experience.
Yeah, I don't know why it shut down. But okay, so
wait, do you have siblings?
Yes. So I have a complex family structure, but growing up, I have one younger brother who is 18 months younger than me. But later on in life, my parents divorced, and I accumulated 3 step siblings and 2 adopted siblings. And then my dad remarried eventually, and I have like 2 quote unquote stepbrothers, but we never really were like, growing up together. So anyway, so we have a whole slew. I have every type of sibling you can have.
I was going to say, fast math, that's 9 of them. That's is that 9 total?
Hold on. Okay. Well, yeah, if you count the 2 over here. So yeah, but like with my mom and my stepdad, we're a big crew. We're fun. We're loads of fun. One of the siblings is estranged. We can talk about that later if you'd like to.
Okay. Great.
But anyway, so I come from a hot mess of a family system. And when you go back into my generational stuff, it all makes sense, right? It's like, going back to my mom's dad and the abuse he endured and the traumatic loss that he had. And then we go back to his parents and we're like, and then, blah, 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 blah. So it's just, if there was a Christmas tree to represent my family tree, and there were ornaments, if there was like an ornament theme, you know how like really organized people will like theme their Christmas trees and stuff, where they're like the one color and things. You do that? You're one of those people?
I do not do that. My wife loves to have a theme each year.
I mean,
color-wise, like a
so
color
beyond
theme.
my executive functioning, and I love looking at it, but I don't understand. But anyway, so if there was that, if that was my family tree, the ornament theme would significantly be addiction, domestic violence, childhood sexual abuse. There's so much childhood sexual abuse in my family tree. Mental illness, organic mental illness. I have a great grandfather who spent 3 years in an asylum back in the day.
Wow.
Like I didn't even know they had asylums at that point, right?
Yeah.
For bipolar, they called it manic depressive. But anyway, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
That's how I got here. But the real beautiful part of my story, and this is what I hope inspires people, is really how I got here is that when I was 9 years old, my mom was in a very deep depression, and she was deciding, would everyone else just be better off without me or not? And this is like crazy stuff. I'm trying not to cuss, because are you rated explicit? My podcast is.
Do whatever you want.
Okay. She looked through the yellow pages. I mean, I don't know if you all are old enough to have had the yellow pages. Okay.
Yeah.
She looked through the yellow pages and literally found a psychiatric hospital. Called my dad, was like, you need to come home from work. I need to go into the hospital. And checked herself in. No family support, no one. Like, she just was like, either I'm done with this world or I need some help. And it's the early 90s, late 80s. It's like, I don't know what we do here. Nobody's going to therapy. So she just checked herself into a psychiatric hospital.
There's no attachment nerd on Instagram that she's able to learn from.
No. I mean, that's why it's so incredible. She is got some grit. Anyway, so she checks herself in and she starts working on her mental health. And there's a, long progression of different things that happen in that process. Like that initial stay, what she says is she was like, oh, for the first time in her life, she goes, oh, man, it feels so good when people take care of you.
Ugh.
It was like she'd never had that experience before.
Wow.
Ouch.
Right? And I mean, I don't know who else has been in a psychiatric hospital, but I can't say they're like the warmest, fuzziest. So like if someone's experience is that they find a psychiatric hospital deeply nurturing and helpful, you can imagine what their actual background feels like. Right?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
that's a great point.
But she never stopped growing. She went to therapy. She found medications that work for her. She went and got her master's in counseling.
No way.
Yep. She didn't become a therapist till later on. Actually, she will tell you that it took me being a therapist for her to trust that she really could do it too. So when she was like, let's see, she's almost 70. When she was like 60 something, she called me up one day, and I have my own practice and stuff. She goes, I think I'm old enough to be a therapist now. I was like, okay. What do you, she's like, can I work for you? I'm like, yeah. So like,
Wow.
Babs was working on our team for a while, and then she retired after like 5 years. She's like, now I'm going to retire. I was like, great. You do you.
Wow.
But that's the hopeful piece, is like I came from both the devastation of insecure attachment legacies and from a mom who was determined to break those cycles. Like both of those things are my reality. And so as I grew older and I'm a people person, it was clear I was going to end up being a shrink, whether I wanted to or not. And I just, like, the more I learned about attachment, and this was me way back in the day. We should interview people who are like in grad school with me, because we'd be in class, and that was like during the really strong like CBT days where everything was about think your way out of what you feel or what you do. And I'd always be like, I mean, I think this also relates to attachment and internal models. And my classmates were like, yeah, okay. So I'm very happy it's a zeitgeist now, because it wasn't always. It wasn't how we looked at things. And I have found as a therapist, it's so helpful.
And you've been a therapist for like 19 years, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's been a lot of change in the last couple decades, I'm sure that you've seen.
Yep.
I don't know anybody who uses CBT without using attachment now.
Right, because we know that now, but we didn't then. And I think what's so hopeful about understanding our beginnings is that it gives us a sense of there's a reason I feel what I feel. There's a reason I do what I do, which means there can be a reason I do something different. There can be a reason I feel something different. Our environment affects us, and so then we can make changes to our environment now and affect ourselves.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just,
do you want to go?
No, it's just funny thinking like that we ever tried to do something that utilizes core beliefs to understand self and emotions and behavioral patterns. Like for the listener, CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, which focuses a lot on how your thoughts impact your feelings, which impact your behaviors, which reinforce your thoughts. And it drills down to cognitive distortions, these ways that we view the world in inappropriate ways, and core beliefs that kind of foundationally support those cognitive distortions. And the fact that we would ever have tried to understand a core belief without understanding attachment is wild, because attachment is just like, oh, where did I develop that core belief? Because it wasn't yesterday.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. When I think people felt like I'm ill, like why I have this maladaptive thought in my head because of me.
Right.
Versus like, no, because of the legacy of your family. And so let's look at that legacy. And that legacy is encapsulated by a cultural legacy,
Right.
And how is that cultural legacy affecting your family legacy? There's a lot there.
Hey, we want to pause real quick and let you know about something. We know a lot of you don't just want more content. You want connection, you want practice, you want tools, you want depth. And that's why we created The Basement. It's our private community for anyone who's ready to go beyond surface level and actually engage their emotional lives. So every month we release a deep dive Q&A episode that's only available inside the community. We answer real questions from real listeners in a more intentional way than we do on our regular feed. We also share guided reflections and practical tools to actually help you apply this stuff. And you'll be connected to other people who are doing the work too.
It's $10 a month or $100 for the year, and you can cancel anytime. And honestly, even if you've been listening to our podcast for a while and you're not sure how much you'd use the basement, becoming a member is still a great way to support what we're building. It helps us create more spaces, more conversations, and more resources for anyone who wants and needs them. So check out the link that will be in the show notes. If you're ready for more than just listening, come join us in the basement.
So what's fascinating to me about your story is we're going to talk today about your new book, which is how to deal with your
Beep.
blank so that your kids don't have to,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
And I want to kind of what you were telling us in the beginning about what the book is about and that whole reader experience. I really want people to hear that because it's so good. What's fascinating to me about your story is, and correct me if I'm putting pieces together that don't fit, it seems like so many people that are doing the work that like we're all doing today have had the experience where they grew up in this family system and it was either great and there was all this pain, or like maybe there wasn't a lot of greatness and it was just a lot of pain. And then these people grow up and get into these experiences where they start to see how that origin impacted them, and then they start to change and heal, maybe even if the generation before them does not. And then there can be even pushback from that generation when the child is starting to change and heal, and it doesn't always happen that way. What's so interesting about your story is it sounds like your mom kind of started doing, not that she was perfect, but like it sounds like she started doing the work of how to deal with
the journey,
how to deal with her stuff so that you didn't have to maybe any more or as much as the way you were. Am I putting like those pieces together?
No,
fairly?
yeah, I say she's like the first generation cycle breaker in our family. And she started that midway through my childhood. So that is an interesting dynamic for us. But she is that way and she continues to be that way. You know, she'll tell you the hardest thing she's ever had to do as a parent was when I was going through graduate school and I was really putting all of the puzzle pieces together, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was parentified. This is what it looked like. And I was working through some of the memories of different things that had happened in my home. And I called her to be like, I need to talk about some of this, and I think I need you to acknowledge it. And I remember she was like bracing herself because she didn't want to hurt us. She wanted nothing bad to happen to us. But when her mental health was unhinged when we were quite little, there were quite a few things that happened that were pretty traumatic. And so I kind of said, like, I need to say some things that I remember. And I said some things and she said, you remember that? And I said, and she said, I was really hoping you would have forgotten. And I thought, well, what an honest thing to say as a parent. Like, I was just hoping that was going to, and just that was healing for me because it was like, oh, I'm not crazy. I didn't make up this really intense thing that happened. And then I just kind of walked through like, this is what it was like, blah, blah, blah. And my mom was like, I'm so sorry. I wish you didn't. All she said was, I wish you hadn't gone through that. And I could tell she was bracing herself. Like, I'm a hypervigilant parentified child, so I know what everyone's feeling all the time. So I knew that she was like holding back. But I also knew my stepdad was in the background, and God bless him, is the sweetest sweetheart on planet Earth. So I knew he was going to be back there supporting her, and I could let our roles kind of realign again, where it's like, okay, now I'm the kid and you're the parent, and you're going to have to contain what I'm feeling and go deal with it with your grown-ups, and I'm going to try not to take care of you. And then I also remember hanging up the phone and being like, oh, did I break her? Did I break her? Oh my gosh, what if I broke her? This is going to be so bad. Could she handle this? You know?
Okay, you've said this a couple times, and I would like for you to break it down a little bit just for listeners who may not know, because I know we all know, and this is where we can nerd out about things. Because I know that I relate to it. I know we have listeners who have the same experience. What is a hypervigilant parentified child? What does parentified mean?
Great question. So the role of the parent is to be the soothing, regulating presence in the room for the underdeveloped children. that exists there, right? So human beings are born with very underdeveloped brains. And so we rely relationally on the elders in the room to help us regulate, learn, make meaning of the world. And in a what I would call a right side up relationship, the parent is the most regulated person in the room, and the child is the neurologically more dysregulated, developing person in the room. And so the parent is not perfect. I mean, oh my Lord, I had 3 kids. I don't know what I was thinking. And so it's a lot. It's a lot. And I get frustrated and I get annoyed. So I don't want people to have like this image of like this Zen parent, you know, this like Madonna mother figure who's never plussed. She's nonplussed. That's not a thing. But has a sense of herself or of himself or of their self, and is sturdy enough and soft enough for a child to feel secure with them. So that is the right side up parent-child relationship, and we would call that secure in the attachment research. But an upside down parent relationship is when a parent, for whatever reason, whether it's mental illness or addiction or unresolved trauma or just emotional immaturity from their own childhood, when the parent is less emotionally and internally organized and steady than the child, then the child, that relationship flips upside down and the child becomes the parent in the relationship. So, you know, I was always trying to regulate my mom so that she wouldn't disappear, or, you know, she would end up in bed for days, where it was like, and so then the parentified piece would be me recognizing, oh, she's in a depression. How can I need very little? How can I take care of my brother? How can I put on a skit that makes her laugh? How can I, you know, I mean, as I got older, like try and get my dad to stop drinking. What is it that I can do to try and keep her alive and steady? Because I do rely on her still. She is still the only parent. I can't drive.
Right.
But I don't emotionally rely on her. I emotionally supply her with regulation as opposed to her giving me that.
Yes. Okay.
I don't emotionally rely. I emotionally supply. Oof. Eli.
Which it's like, that's the, oh man, the complexity, because it when you grow up in that environment and then, like, say you get married, to emotionally supply in that partner relationship, I would say is a needed, healthy dynamic. But when you have the experience of emotionally supplying to your parent, then whenever you feel the need to emotionally supply to your partner, there's parts of you that are like, nope, that's not my role. I don't need to do that because it wasn't over here.
Yeah. Or you pick a partner who supplies you nothing and you do all the supplying. Because in a healthy partner attachment, that supply goes back and forth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so both people are mutually attending to each other at a level that is not parentified in a marriage. I mean, nothing will kill your marriage like trying to parent your partner.
Ooh.
No, not good.
That's a sound bite. That'll be on Instagram.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So I think, you know, when you're thinking about your own growing up, if you were a parentified child, you want to be mindful of, one, making sure that you have people in your life who are capable of the giving and the receiving, of doing both parts of co-regulation, is this fancy word that we use, which is, you know, being there for each other when things are emotionally messy. Whether that messiness is my kids are melting down and I feel stressed about it, or that messiness is my childhood trauma is up and I'm afraid that I'm failing as a person and I need regulation. You need someone in your life who can give and receive, and you need to learn how to give and receive. And understand that giving in the context of a relationship where you're not the child and the person's not the parent is different. And it's going to, and so you need to do it still. You can't just decide, well, now I'm a grown up, I'm never giving to anyone because that means I'm not taking care of myself, which I think some people do make that conclusion.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think that is a common conclusion to make. I do think it is interesting. I see even within myself, like, that receiving care is such a learning process. Like the giving part is such a learning process for sure. Because I grew up in a larger family, and I learned some self-sufficiency, avoidance things that were just like, if I just take care of myself, I'm not a burden in this scenario.
Yes.
So giving help to other people felt like a burden because I was trying to not act like a burden to them. So it's pretty unfair that like you're asking me to get you a refill for your drink while we're having a movie night when like you wouldn't offer to get that for me. That's like a very trivial way to look at it, but that's how it shows up. And then, but like receiving now as an adult is like, I have to learn to trust people with the need.
Well, and more so, trust that you aren't a burden. Trust that when you bring your messiness, people fall deeper in love with you rather than feel full of overwhelm, right? Which is what you learned growing up. Is like our needs are overwhelming. And so the best way for me to stay close to my parents, this is something I really want people to understand. So if you're familiar with attachment, we talk about these different styles. You can go back and listen to that other episode. But one of the labels that we use to talk about a pattern of coping is avoidant. And you just use that label to describe yourself. A lot of people think avoidant attachment means you avoid attaching to people.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that. It means you avoid disclosing emotional, tender needs as a strategy for staying close to people. I love you guys. The way that you're making me feel so smart. I'm so into it.
Well, you are so smart. That's the first thing.
Yeah,
but I think
these are genuine reactions.
When it gets framed in a way that meets how it feels,
that's when it's like,
yeah, it's like, oh man, I'd like to throw that book against a wall.
Is that Brene Brown? Is she the one who said that? I love that.
I think so. Yeah, yeah. And
wow,
yeah, that's what I do. I have some big T trauma that influences that as well. But like the family stuff, it is interesting how it's like, if I create the safety of all my needs are taken care of because I'm the one who takes care of them, you never have a chance to hurt me.
Yes.
And so now I get really reactive if I give someone the chance to care for me. We even talked about this on that episode particularly. If I give the chance to somebody to take care of me and they don't do it the way that I would have done it for myself, which I deem as perfectly, then I interpret their human attempts to care for me as inadequate. But I recognize now, like, that's because I like the safety of my control.
And you give very little opportunities, right? So if you do this very, very seldomly, it's like Russian roulette. Like, that just might be the moment when that other person is dysregulated. Or I have a story about this. My husband also has an avoidant dynamic, and we were dating, and I was just starting to unpeel him and getting him to open up. And we were out on a boat, and we'd been out on this boat ride talking about all this stuff. And I'm talking about my stuff. And finally he's like ready to tell me this tender story. And he starts telling me this story right at the time where I hit, like, I had to pee for a while, but I like hit that point where you're like, oh no, there is like no way this urine can stay in my bladder. Like it's going to come out one way or the other.
And you're thinking about that, so you're like, I'm not even hearing the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Correct. And all I want more than anything in the world to be able to show up for him, because I know how tender that inside part is. And anyway, so he starts telling me the story about being in trumpet class, and all of his pals wanted to be first trumpet, and he didn't really care, and then he got first trumpet, and so they were all so jealous and mad, and he's like at the front of the class, and he like just cannot do the trumpet. Like, he just totally flops because he's feeling all this pain. So, and he's telling me this story, and it's a big deal for him to take up any space, and he's looking at me, and he's very smart, so he can tell that I'm like kind of distracted, and I'm like trying to listen, but I'm kind of distracted, and then I interrupt him. I'm like, I'm so sorry. This is the worst moment ever, but I either need us to row back to shore so I can pee real quick, or I'm going to have to pee my pants. Like, I'm literally in that zone. And he just shut down. He's like, yeah, of course. And he like rowed the boat back to shore, and I like peed, and I came back, and I'm like, okay, ready? And he's like, nah, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, I can't access that anymore.
And luckily he chose me, because I was like, no. Yeah. We're not doing that. We are going all the way back to that part because this matters to me and I really wanted to hear it. And it's not my fault that my bladder told me now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Right.
And that's kind of how I've loved on him over the years. Is like he'll give me this tiny little moment, and it's often not at the right moment. And I have to kind of go, I want to care for that. Yeah. Give me 1 second while this is happening. But I think that is an avoidant thing to kind of like put it out there in this tiny little soundbite and kind of test the waters. And then if it doesn't happen, then it's like, never mind. It was never that big of a deal anyway.
Eli, like, if my wife were to hear this, she would feel so seen by that. And also, like, the moments are not, I'm a pretty vulnerable person now. I was not at all 10 years ago. And it wasn't necessarily it was the stories too. So it was that part, and I would like behaviorally look for care in these really like passive ways. I wouldn't let you know how much it meant to me for you to do this thing this way. And in not letting you know how much that mattered to me, I wasn't expressing my need. And also telling you how much repercussion there would be for our relationship if you didn't do it the way that I thought you should.
Right.
So even to the point of your book, how to deal with your shit so that your kids don't have to.
Not the official title. Not the official title.
Yeah. But that was that shows up again. Like, it's like every stage of relationship, it was showing up differently. In marriage, it was really showing up. But as I dealt with my own addiction, it was showing up. And now as a parent, it's like, oh my goodness. Like, I have so little bandwidth for my needs that I've got to be exceptionally clear and ask for what I need, or I'm going to feel forgotten, which is the
and then you're going to shut down, and then you're not really in the room, and your kids can feel that, right? And then they're going to go, I guess that's what we're supposed to do with dad, is like just kind of, fold our hands in our lap and do very little disruption. Versus, that rich interplay when you can sense that someone is capable of entering emotional terrain. Oof. It's like, oh, okay, we can be in this together. I mean, it's what I'm sensing with you guys. It's also why I'm loving this conversation. Is I'm like, I can go, you can hold me talking about little Eli, and you can hold, the way that my brain works at the same time. And that's what our kids long for, is to be known in their nuance of, I'm overwhelmed, I feel scared, I feel sad, I feel mad at you, but I don't want to lose you. That moment when our kids are upset and they push us away because they're flooded, they're having a sensory overwhelm. We all get this, like you're mad about something, but they don't want us to go away. They want us to give space. That takes an incredible amount of emotional attunement on our part to be able to go, okay, you got it. I'm going to back away, and I'm not going to go, and I'm here. Do you want me to be in the hallway? How far do you need me to be from you right now? 5 feet next to you, hallway, bedroom? When do you need me to come back? Right? Like, but that, we can't do that if we don't deal with our emotional underpinnings, right? Because otherwise our kid pushes us away and we're like drowning in shame. I'm a terrible parent. I failed. Or we're entering control mode. You don't talk to me like that. That is disrespectful. I was only trying to help you, right? I mean, there's so many places we can go to retreat from the onslaught of emotional trauma that's arising in our bodies in response to our kids. And so if we haven't dealt with it, then every time we deal with our kids, we're just continuing to relate to our stuff instead of to them. Ooh. And that's why I wrote this book. Because honestly, I wrote this book for myself. Because it was like, I have so much stuff to deal with still, and it keeps coming up with my children.
Were you in my house this morning? Like, I don't know if you could see, Jamie kept hitting me and we were laughing because literally what you were describing was the morning. Yeah. Like, we're in this phase right now with our toddler where she's doing the favorite parent thing, because we just we added a new, like, I have a 2.5-year-old and a 3-month-old. Okay. And so my 3-month-old, is very dependent on my wife. Yes. And my 2.5-year-old is more independent. And I mean, it's like I'm in the kitchen cooking breakfast with my toddler.
But she
And
wants mama.
We're just no.
Oh,
She does not. That's the issue.
you're the preferred. You're the preferred.
I'm the
at this
preferred
point.
parent right now. In this,
Don't say
in this
favorite.
stage.
Don't say favorite. By the way,
Not-
I'm so
sorry.
annoying. Only
Not-
because favorite feels like a conscious
Wait, did
choice.
I say favorite?
Favorite
Oh,
parent thing.
Thanks for catching.
I mean, I would totally do it too. But I'm like just reminding all of us that like
Preferred,
our kids
yes.
aren't playing favorites. They
Great
are.
reminder.
They are having a preferred hierarchy of who their preferred attachment caregiver is based on who is the most available to them in a specific moment in time. And when mom has a
Yep.
new baby strapped
Yeah.
to her, then often that becomes the other parent.
Yeah, like practically speaking, I am more available to Charlotte right now than I am to Lila, or even than my wife is, because of how much Lila is
Yes.
dependent on mom right now. So I am the preferred
Yep.
parent currently, and
Okay.
it's like, Eli, it's coming out. I mean, we're in the kitchen, I'm making breakfast, and my wife comes out and like woke up early. I know I'm keeping track of time. Woke
We're
up
doing
early,
fine. Okay.
came out, and the like my toddler turns around and sees her and is like, "No, mama, go away."
Oh yeah.
And I can just
totally.
see on my wife's face like how much that
Heartbroken.
hurts.
Yeah.
And then it like, it just like all of her stuff gets triggered, and then my stuff gets triggered, and then it's this whole other thing. So anyways, you were like reading my mail.
Yeah.
You said you wrote this book for you. I think one thing that I want to highlight that I feel like you would also agree with is, and this is not a I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. This is not like a dig on the title of the book. It sounds like what you're talking about, what we're talking about, what you're writing in the book is like, this is how to continually deal with your
Yes.
stuff so that your kids don't have. That's just obviously like doesn't fit on a book as well.
I
But it's not like a
love
one
it.
and done
No,
thing
this
that you
is-
do and then you're done.
No, because every stage of parenting, our children are changing developmental stages. And as they change developmental stages, so do we. What gets brought up in our nervous systems around a 2.5-year-old, God bless you. I don't have one anymore. I have 6-year-olds and a 10, almost 11-year-old. But what comes up in your nervous system around that is very different than what comes up when your kids start to build autonomy when they've reached, later stages. But it's going to bring up stuff at every stage. When your kids get married, I don't know, maybe to someone you don't like that much. That happens, or they choose a
Yeah.
career that you didn't anticipate they would choose, or they have a political ideology that is different than yours, or a faith alignment that's different than yours.
Yep.
At every stage of parenting, there is going to be an invitation for us to acknowledge and heal or develop something that has not gotten the opportunity to grow.
Beautifully
So,
said.
It's like we're growers, and this is not a perfect parent club. Ain't no
Yeah.
perfect parents. That's not what we're doing. But the difference between a parent who can acknowledge their stuff and actively tries to develop themselves, and a parent that says, well, I was doing the best I could. I don't know why you couldn't be fine with it. I mean, it's a visit for the holidays. That's the difference. Like, do you want them to come home for the holidays or not?
Yes, you're exactly right. Yep, we
Yeah,
hear that
yeah.
all the time in our office.
Clip.
Clip. So many good clips. Okay, so tell us, just because I'm being mindful of our time, tell us kind of maybe what you were doing even before we recorded, how this actually can help our listeners deal with some of their stuff so their kids don't have to. Because the way that you've laid it out structurally and practically, I think is amazing.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, I don't have time to read books. So I'm like, I have to read a book that other people can actually use, which means that instead of having big, long chapters, there are tiny little chapters. So there's 32 sections in the book. It's organized by 2 sections. The first section is they're all different types of emotions that we have to learn to deal with as parents. So how to deal with feeling sad, how to deal with feeling angry, ashamed, anxious. One I think that most people don't think about but is important, how to deal with feeling jealous of your children because you've created a reality for them that you didn't get to have. And so now they're upset that there are, peas mixing with pasta on their plate, and you had to deal with there not always being food on the plate. And so it's hard to deal with that dichotomy, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, the first section is all of that, how to deal with feeling at odds with your kids, how to deal with feeling stressed. I need to go read that chapter again. And then the second section are all of the emotional coping habits that we developed when we were little because we didn't have secure adults that could help us co-regulate. So things like perfectionism, that's an anxiety habit, or people pleasing. I'm going to fawn all over everybody. Well, that doesn't work very well when you're raising kids because everybody has a different opinion on how you should raise your kids. So this people pleasing habit can get in between you and your kids real quickly. How to deal with a control habit, a blame habit, a toxic comparison habit. It's like all of these things that you use to cope because you didn't have grown-ups that you could use to help you cope. So my hope is, I want people to have this book and to feel like there's like a little paper parent on the shelf that they can pick up and just reference and just flip to like, I'm anxious. What do I do when I'm anxious? And get compassion. You guys are so cute. The way you react to me is the best. It is the best.
Do you have that written down somewhere, or did that just come off as you were talking a paper parent on the shelf? Because if not, you need to put it somewhere.
I've used it a little bit. I need to probably put it more in the marketing. Okay. But yes. But yeah, that's what I want for people because, and there's like self-compassion scripts on every topic. Because if you can learn to be compassionate with your own emotional development process, then your kids are much more likely to trust that you'll be able to do that for them also.
Yep.
And so, I mean, it's one of many attempts in my life to continue to be a parent who is available and sturdy and soft and in process, so that hopefully my kids, while they will still have things that they have to deal with, there's a little asterisk on the title, and if you flip to the back cover, it says, how to deal with your blank so your kids don't have to, asterisk, as much.
Ooh, nice. That's
because, of course, our kids are going to have to deal with some of our stuff. That's part of it. But, like, I want my kids to be dealing with stuff where it's like, Mom, you were kind of distracted, or, like, that season of work was like this and like that, as opposed to, like, okay, I love my mom. She's going to let me do this. I know she will. But, like, I have a memory of it being her birthday, my dad coming home from Piccolo's, her being very upset. We're all in the room. And she, at the top of her lungs, crying, starts singing Crappy Birthday to me. Crappy birthday. And we're like wide-eyed. We're like young kids, like, what are we supposed to do here? My dad's like frozen in shame. And I mean, like that stuff, I don't know. That took some EMDR. For those of you who don't know, that's some trauma therapy for me to like process through some of that. Like, I want my kids to have a general experience of, yeah, my mom could be off sometimes, but she always came back and reconnected. And she really was the parent, even when she was having a parent meltdown, that feeling. Whereas, like, in that moment, like, I have a mom who can't contain herself. She's not even thinking about the impact she's having on her kids in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good.
I think one of the biggest challenges that we'll have, like this generation of parents, is we have so much of this information and so many tools that generations before us didn't have, which is amazing and is going to help break so many cycles. And if we're not careful, it's like you're talking about, going to create this subconscious belief that our kids aren't still going to have their stuff that they're going to be talking about in therapy in 30 years.
That's right.
And that's so right. I love that asterisk that you have. Like, it's gonna happen. And what makes a secure, safe parent is not the thing not happening, but does your kid feel safe enough to be able to come to you and basically like highlight your blind spot before you even see it, and then them not feel like they're doing something wrong for doing that.
Does your kid feel that there's room for them in the room? And that you will respond generally, consistently, not perfectly, to their tender and distressing needs with support?
Amazing. Well, we need to land the plane. So
this is Eli, so fun, Eli.
We are definitely doing an episode 2 with you. And also, where can people find you and support you?
Okay, so you can buy the book wherever you buy books. So if you're, anti-Amazon, I get you. Don't do it there. Buy it at, Bookshop. Is that what it's called? Bookshop.org, Books A Million, all those places. Nice. You can also find links to all of that on my website, which is attachmentnerd.com.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Perfect. And I run my mouth for free on the interwebs on Instagram and
Great.
Facebook.
That's a great description. You should please change your bio to that.
Yeah.
At Attachment Nerd. Where I have a lot
she's
of
a
fun.
great follow.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
like
you.
if your book is the paper parent in your pocket. Is that what you said? You didn't say pocket. That's
On the
funny.
shelf, but yeah,
On the shelf?
either one.
Okay, then paper pocket, paper parent on the shelf is the book.
Yeah.
But if you follow Eli on Instagram or TikTok, I guess if you're on there,
Yeah, I don't
then
do
she's
the
like
TikToks that much.
she's like your paper or your digital parent in
we
your
go.
pocket.
There we go.
There it is.
There you go. My pockets can hold phones, but not books. So that makes
We
sense.
landed that plane.
And yeah, you did so good. It was so
Oh,
good.
this was a joy.
Yeah.
Please go buy the book. And we'll
Yeah.
definitely have you back.
Well,
Thank
to
you.
everybody, thank you. To everybody listening, we're glad you're here. Keep showing up. You're worth it.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to another episode. Listen, we're working on some really practical resources to help you connect more deeply with yourself and others. So if you head over to our website, 3percentco.com, you can learn more about that. The link will be in the show notes. And this is the part of the show where we ask you for some help. Listen, we don't have a big fancy production team. We're recording these in my therapy office in between sessions and in the margins of our life. We just really believe in the message that much. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and rarely would I take the time to review and rate a show just because honestly I forgot. It wasn't until we started doing this show that I realized doing that actually really does help these platforms notice our show and get the word out. And so if any of this is impactful to you, we would love it if you took a second to leave us a review, rate us, or if you want to just do it the old-fashioned way, text this link to a friend and say, hey, let's talk about this episode. Whatever you do, make sure to follow us on whatever platform you're listening to so you never miss an episode. We're really grateful you're here, and we'll see you next week.
So let's be honest.